Welcome, friends, to the Pioneers of the Independent Networks. I'm your host, Ricky Blues. This is your co-host, Tim Walker. And joining us again this week, Max Thrasher, the man from the Paradise Knife and Gun Club in the Bronx, New York. I didn't get that wrong, did I, brother?
You got it perfectly right.
Welcome to the show, Max.
Welcome to all the fans, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you, gentlemen.
And fans, if you've joined us in the past, you know that we bring you all the characters, the matches, the promotions, the feuds that populated the Mid-Atlantic independent wrestling scene from the 1970s to today. And boy, on this show do we like taking that stroll down concussion lane, and especially with a guest the magnitude of Max Thrasher. Folks, strap in, join us, and here we go.
The almighty commandments have come down from Earl Kirk, president of the ASWA. Big deal. They say, number one, I'm suspended for 30 days. Number two, I'm fined $1,000. For what? Beating up AJ Fritzoid. Who's AJ Fritzoid? Some paper champ, some goofball in a suit and tie, sitting at a P.O. box down at the post office, waiting for to be a star. Come on, give me a break. If you're going to find somebody, find Fritzoid for being a fraud, and find that Earl Kirk for being a fraud of a president. As you can see, the skyline behind me, Bronx, Paradise Knife and Gun Club, Max Thrasher, the Bounty Hunter, new ASWA champ. You can take your fines, do whatever you want with them. I'll be around, I'll find you.
After that, you were involved in UIW, and I thought UIW had one of the most interesting business models of any company that I've come across, where you had a production company where the production students who actually filmed the wrestling and produced a weekly television show for WJZ. How did all that come about?
Ed Zahn and I were throwing around ideas. He came up with the UIW, Universal Independent Wrestling, because what we wanted to do was showcase all the independents. You know, kind of get all the independents to work together and stuff. How we got tied up with the Gambos, I think that was their last names. Gambos was, they had a TV studio. I have no idea how that came about. But I do remember one day Ed Zahn said, we're going to go down and talk to these people. And then Ed Zahn was working for them temporarily, kind of trying to sell advertisement. And Axel, myself, and Ed would sit down. The Gambos would put their thoughts in regards to how we can make this thing work. And we started booking shows. They put up the capital to book the shows and things. And that's how it got off the ground. I mean, it was kind of like anything in wrestling. It's like, let's do a show. Let's do TV. And to be real honest with you, maybe because I'm older, my memory isn't serving me as well as it used to. I'm not really sure there was any plan. I think a lot of stuff just fell into our laps. A lot of stuff was like we were in the right place, the right time, talking to the right person who talked to the right person, and then all of a sudden we were there. Because I truly do not remember this being a long, drawn-out, negotiated thing. I think it was like all of a sudden Ed Zahn's like, hey, we can get TV. It's like, where are we going? Where we need to be? You know, and we were in the car driving to Maryland, and we were talking to the Gambos, and the next thing you know, we're doing TV. Next thing you know, we're shooting our first show at, what was it, Dundalk Bingo Hall again?
At that time, it was the club in Essex. That's
the club.
The first UIW,
Yeah. So we were there, because I wrestled Reginald Royce.
Yep.
You know, and through the ring bell at Dave the Wave and Ed Zahn, who were doing commentary.
Hey, come on, no!
Can you tell me what's going on?
What do you mean? What's your problem? The match is over! Look, the match is... Come on! The match is over, Max! Give us a break here! You got the 3 count.
I don't know who's in charge, but you better get me some more competition and more money, or I'm not wrestling again! I don't need...
You're scheduled for next week, Max.
That's what I'm thinking next week! That's what I think of you!
Look, talk to the... Hey, come on! Talk to the matchmaker! The president... This guy is insane.
I think we got a big problem developing here with this bounty hunter.
He says he's not going to wrestle next week. He wants more money. I'm not the matchmaker, Ed. What do I look like?
Max Thrasher, the bounty hunter. You remember last week, Ed? He claimed he wasn't going to wrestle. I told him to talk to the matchmaker. He came out here and yelled at us, threw the bell, threw Reggie Royce practically in our lap.
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Rick Myers has stated that Bounty Hunter has 5 seconds to enter the ring.
He better hurry.
Before
Where is
he is disqualified.
Have you seen him?
5, 4.
They're counting down for a disqualification. The Bounty Hunter nowhere in sight. He kept his promise, Ed.
He's not here. It's obviously.
He's a man of his word. I'll give him that.
By default.
I don't know. I think you're going to have to get to the bottom of this one. This just makes no sense to me, Dave.
Bronco Billy with a victory.
The whole purpose of Bounty Hunter is to make money, to be here to
But
make money.
he just lost money because he didn't come to the ring.
Exactly.
Bronco Billy goes home with the winner's purse. He said last week he wasn't going to come out.
I said I wouldn't wrestle anymore until you gave me competition. I did the Braun Strowman before Braun Strowman, right? You okay? And then all of a sudden the next week I wasn't on the card and there was speculation. And then when I wrestled Phoenix, Kevin Casey, the guy with the golf club and the suit.
Yep.
Good manager. He was. I don't know who you could compare him to. He had a little bit of Bobby Heenan in him. He had a lot of Paul Heyman in him. But he stirred up that feud with the Phoenix as well. And then the Phoenix didn't have to do anything. Kid was a god. I mean, he the spiked blonde hair, good looks. Built like a brick outhouse. I mean, he just had it all going for him.
Wait a minute, that isn't Michael Lewis music.
Oh, what's this?
Wait a minute, that sounds vaguely familiar.
No, I've never heard nobody use this music before. I don't understand this. What?
Oh, no!
Oh, no! What is this? What are we?
Don't tell me!
Oh, well, you'll be pleased to see this, huh?
Oh, please. This guy again? Did he sign with Kevin Casey?
I don't know. Casey's trying to say something over the house mic.
Shut up! Believe that the Bounty...
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The man from the Paradise Knife and Gun Club in the Bronx, New York.
Wait a minute.
Max Thrasher, the Bounty Hunter.
This guy, the Bounty Hunter, is so full of surprises. Every week, he leaves us hanging. Now we know what he was talking about last week when he came out here.
I'll tell you what, this is a
2 weeks ago, whenever it was.
Well, this is a big acquisition.
Tell me about
it. I mean, Chaos Incorporated just became a very, very powerful entity here within the UIW.
And now the Bounty Hunter?
And a lot of the times, I'd have to say, a lot of the times my matches just fell into place because of what I looked like and the gimmick versus who was, at the scene at the time, like Rambo and me. Come on, Phoenix and me. Well, come on, Fritz Lloyd, come on. Those were like, those were like wrestling 101 matchups that you could get a decent card with and a decent run with. Then it was Dave Casanova versus me. That kind of stuff. So it kind of fell into place. The whole gimmicks with that and the UIW. It's kind of like, once again, it's kind of like fate. It was supposed to happen, and that's the way it happened. And somebody along the line was moving us in the right direction. That's the best way I can describe it because I have no empirical evidence to say otherwise.
You brought back a gimmick that you guys used in the AWF, the Hellhounds. And if you remember, that first pairing for UIW was you and I as the Hellhounds.
Taekwondo type.
Oh, my, look at that.
Right into reverse hammerlock.
The message I see here is they're going to say is, look at this. We can wrestle you catch as catch can, the American style. We can come at you with the Japanese moves, the quick maneuvers, the fancy maneuvers, the surprise maneuvers that are going to confuse you as an opponent. They're sending a message out. You're going to get in the ring with the Hellhounds. You better be prepared because Lord knows.
Hellhound number 2.
What's coming next?
Tagging in number 1, double team effort of some sort. That's a kick. It's so quick. It's like lightning. How can you defend yourself against another one? How can you defend yourself against something like that?
You can't. You can't. And Beach Boy is definitely in trouble here.
Remember back in the days, you wanted to wrestle as many you wanted to wrestle. You wanted to wrestle, and you couldn't go out as yourself 2-3 times. That would have killed your gimmick. That would have killed the business. So I was like, okay, I didn't do a tag. Let's do a tag team. So I got whoever was helping me back at the time to just sew up some red masks, and we cut. They were the most rudimentary, most homemade backyard wrestling masks you ever want to see. And then we wore like black thermal underwear shirts and karate pants, and we went out there and we wrestled. And we wrestled on the card at Hannah Penn. And it was the Bounty Hunter versus Bam Bam Bigelow as the main event, but like third match in the card were the Hellhounds. We came out. I remember some people were laughing, other people were like, what the heck is going on? And then when we hit that finish move where I would throw them up in the air and you would, in this day would call it a power bomb splash or whatever, people were like, whoa. Now, my sister was sitting at the card. My sister knows nothing about wrestling, came to like 2 wrestling cards. She looks at my mom and goes, that's Phil, ain't it? She knew who it was. If she knew who it was, everybody else knew who it was. And then we did it a couple more times, and that was more along the lines. I just wanted to get in the ring. I just wanted to wrestle. I just wanted to, because you didn't get tired back then.
Right.
You could have wrestled every match, and you didn't get tired. You didn't get hurt. You didn't feel anything. And that's all that was. Didn't that evolve into Watsumi and all that? So then you ended up coming up with that stuff. So it did spawn something.
You just came back from a recent tour of the Orient, and we're going to see someone from the Orient, Watsumi, the Rising Sun.
I didn't see this guy out there, though.
Well,
from Tokyo, Japan.
Watsumi will be in here against...
Oh, my goodness! Did you see that?
Well, it's a little early for the 4th of July.
Sparks! Wow! What a fireworks display by Watsumi, the Rising Sun.
Quite an entrance there, Dave the Wave. And I'm not sure Watsumi's seen anything like the insatiable Adrian Hall.
What a way to open another edition of UIW. I don't know what the equivalent of Greenwich Village would be over in Tokyo. I don't even think they have one.
Your guess is as good as mine, Dave the Wave.
Insatiable Adrian Hall locking up this week against brand new international talent. Open door policy coming through once again. Ooh, nice quick side headlock. Takedown, 1, cover.
Now, Dave, as you mentioned to me before the broadcast, what you've come to expect from Oriental wrestlers is a very scientific approach.
Quickness, and some hard-hitting blows like that. Whoa! Whoa! Boom! Beautiful!
What a move!
Beautiful combination. Flipped over top of him into a power bomb. Incredible. This is fantastic.
Along the way, you made a big impact in Joel Goodhart's TWA in Philadelphia. Do you have any memories of that time?
Yeah, we used to. I used to rent the ring out. You had talked earlier in the program, or in one of the other segments, about you had a wrestler that you were one of the few guys that wrestling. That was Ted Petty. Ted Petty said, if you want to get into the business, and you want people to notice you, rent a ring. So Ted sold me my first ring, and Ted, probably, I owe 90% of my visibility to, because he would double book, triple book rings, and he'd say, Phil, I need you to go do a ring for me. I need you to go do it. And then people would be like, hey, he would charge $100 more than I would, but his ring was bigger. Mine was smaller. And I could, I was trying to make a name. So Joel Goodhart called me and said, hey, Ted Petty gave me your name, Cheetah Kid, says you have a ring. Can you bring it up? Yep. Boom. Brought it up, set it up. And I'm like, hey, we work. He's like, what do you mean you work? We work. We're workers. He says, okay. So he threw us in there against J.T. Smith. Some of the local guys. Stevie Richards, the Stevie Richards from WCW. He was there. I think it was Nick Domino or Stevie Domino or something. So we were working undercards. DC Drake was the champ. They brought in Jules Strongbow a lot. Local guys. Oh man, Kalua, Stetson, Winners. Tom Brandy, Johnny Hotbite. They were all kind of like the stable, if you will. We were kind of the openers. We kind of filled in. And as time went along, when Joe Goodhart was running. He was running in that Philadelphia sports bar. He needed a smaller ring, so then I went out and picked up a 16-foot ring from old Southwestern Wrestling, Jerry Lawler's bunch.
Right.
I picked up one, had cable ropes instead of rope ropes, so this thing was sturdy. It was 16, fit in there perfectly. You know, gave a good bounce. It was a nice ring. Drake was kind of on the way out, not out of TWA, but he was kind of doing more stuff with the NWL and all, and NWF and all that stuff. And then they started bringing in, they brought in Cactus Jack, who was Cactus Jack at the time, and started bringing in some of the old WWF and NWA guys that were on the independent circuit, and they were running the gimmick. And, of course, the Sheik and Abdul the Butcher and those guys. And then Joe Goodhart hooked up with Todd Gordon, and it was still TWA, and then all of a sudden it became ECW.
Right.
Then when it came ECW and Goodhart worked his way out, Eddie Gilbert came in. So Eddie Gilbert started bringing up his boys from Nashville, Tennessee. So then you had Eddie Gilbert, Doug Gilbert, you had those guys, and it started to become a mini Mid-South. And then all of a sudden, you know, Paul Lee comes in, and they move from the Philadelphia, and the history may be, you know, there may be spots missed in here, but what I remember is we moved from the Philadelphia sports bar to the arena, the Philadelphia, that arena they used over there, and then Paul Lee was coming in, and that was when the transition started to the ECW hardcore stuff. Because now what was happening was, you know, Paul Lee was bringing his boys in from Jersey, Tommy Dreamer, New Jack City, New Jack. He was using some of us. Oh, we would do the boys club down in Philly, the Rams Club.
Right.
That was another big one. And then all of a sudden, you know, Paul Lee started, you know, bringing in the boys, and they were doing all that bizarre stuff, jumping off the balcony through 5 tables and stuff like that. And, you know, if you were into it at the time, you know, then they went out and bought their own rings, so they didn't need me anymore for the ring. And I kind of got phased out basically because he had his own corner out. Paul Lee was running it like a federation. He had his boys signed on and stuff and that. And then that was kind of where the ECW came. So TWA became ECW, you know, through that process. Goodhart, Gordon, Gilbert, and then, you know, Paul Lee, Paul Heyman. And then it became the ECW that ended up, you know,
It moves from Eastern to Extreme.
Yeah.
Picking up where you left off, you were one of the few people on the East Coast that had a ring and would rent it out to different promotions. And I remember one night I was with you in Philadelphia. It was after Joel Goodhart TWA card, and it was probably about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were taking the ring down, and it was going down real slow, and a cage was wrapped in barbed wire, and we were real slow and real careful about taking the barbed wire off the cage. And it was real late at night. The only people left in the building were the ring crew, were the janitors, and a few police officers. Out comes the original Sheik and Sabu at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, kicking chairs, screaming, hollering, just acting like they're completely crazy, just like they're in character. It's one of the things that I will never forget.
That was a night, I'm telling you. The work that went into that cage match, it was Abdul the Butcher versus the original Sheik in a barbed wire cage. And they lasted, 2 minutes in the cage, and then they were all over the arena, because that was Joel Goodhart at that time. Joel Goodhart's wrestling was, you spend the least amount of time in the ring you can, and you wrestle as much as you can in the crowd. Listen, I was in Indiana State University. The main event was Abdul the Butcher and the original Sheik. They started in the ring, maybe 2 minutes. Now, if you have ever been to a college basketball arena, it's like Hershey Park, if not bigger, depending on. Well, they went up the flights of stairs, up, ended up out in the concession stand. Trashed the concession stand. They were out into the hallway areas. When it all ended up, they had made a complete circle around the mezzanine back to where they started, worked their way back down. And, of course, everybody from the locker room had to be cleared. So when you came out, you know, we were supposed to try to break this thing up. But there was one thing, inside story for the fans, Abdul the Butcher did not want anybody touching him. He knew what the gimmick was. Awesome guy. But when he was working and you tried to do his breakups, he did not want you touching him. Now, somebody should have let the boys in on that, because when you went up and touched him, he gave you the old fork in the forehead. So I learned that real quick. He wasn't going to do anything to anybody. Abby was so big, people were afraid of him, and he had that look in his eye. But that was one of the inside stories, was Abby did not want anybody touching him during those breakup sessions. The Sheik was cool with it, but Abby didn't want it. And if you got too close, you got the fork. So yeah, those two guys were brutal as far as giving the people raw, hardcore. You didn't know if it was real or not. And then remember, it was, I think, after, what was it, before the Sheik or after the Sheik? Well, it would have been after the Sheik. In the middle of the Sheik, okay. Was Brody. Remember Brody and Abby?
Oh, yes.
And then Brody got killed in Puerto Rico, and then it kind of went back to Abby, because Brody and Abby were the main event in my first show in Shippensburg. Mm-hmm. And they did the same thing. All you did was take Bruiser Brody out and put the original Sheik in. Abby was the constant. And it was the same match. They beat the ever-living crap out of each other. They'd be bloody as all could be. And they went everywhere and anywhere. It was like Godzilla and Gamera stomping through Japan. They were just taking everything out. And people loved it. People were like, they didn't know what to do. But going back to that psychology of wrestling when we grew up, the reason for all of the terror and the angst and the awe and all that was the fact that was the only match that did that.
Right.
Everybody else was scientific, in the ring, working spots, doing what they did. You had the high flyers doing a couple spots. But when they came out, everybody's like, okay, another match. No, it wasn't another match. This was brutality. This wasn't wrestling the way they were used to seeing it. So that's why they were selling out, because they were the only ones that did it. If everybody did it on the card, if every match was a cage match, if every match was a blood match, if every match was a death match, then everybody would be like desensitized at the end. That's why that stuff went over so huge. It was the psychology, because not only, and I'm going to throw a shout out here, whether to Ed Zahn. Mm-hmm. Ed Zahn was a master at that whole card show, start to finish philosophy, psychology, where it ramped up. You had a great first match on the card to bring everybody in. Then you had your undercards, which either set up angles, didn't set up angles, but they were solid matches. Then you had your semis and your main events, which was what the people were there for. And what happened was, the way he put the card together and worked on the bookings and stuff, everybody left going, wow, I don't know which match was best. Mm-hmm. In the day, everybody's like, well, the main event. No, the main event didn't have to be the best match in the book. And sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was the first match of the night, or it was the middle card right before. Everybody knows about the business now. Everybody knows about the business. Remember, the opening match, the match before intermission, and the match after intermission were the three most important matches on the card, if nobody knew that. Right. They were the three most important matches. The main event was the main event. People were there because the main event was a name everybody saw. There was that hype already bought in. But if you didn't hook them the first match, it was hard to hook them. Then you had to get them all excited for intermission. You had to get them going, oh my God, I can't wait to get back to my seat. Because if they weren't, they'd be in the bathroom, they'd be buying stuff. And then the match after intermission. And you can rate them which one was more important, but the match after intermission could kill a card if they came out and threw a dud at you. So yeah, I mean, and this is the stuff about the business. I think I loved it more than wrestling, if that's possible. Ask my wife; she'll probably tell you not. But this is the stuff. Excuse me. This is the stuff I loved about the business the most. Is the fact that when it was all said and done, we spent more time talking about how the card went than the move or anything. We talked about did you get a pop? What kind of a pop? How much of a pop? Remember, we got a pop there. So it was like. And I'll throw this story in there because I don't know if I have time to throw it in there, but we were wrestling at the Bingo Hall in Dundalk. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you were there. I don't know who was there anymore. I just remember it was Dave Casanova, myself tagging against, I think it was Sid Garrison and Tarantino. And they turned on me. Dave turned on me, and they handcuffed me to the ring rope, pulled down my singlet, and took a weight belt and just start whipping me. Now, I am fair-skinned. I don't tan. So when you hit me, it looks like the scene from The Passion of the Christ when they're scourging you.
Oh, right.
So I started, and my back's got these giant welts on it. In fact, I think they even cut the skin and it started bleeding. So we're done. I go back upstairs. My wife, first match. Wendy, my wife, first match. She's all excited. She don't know. I didn't wise her up to the business. So I'm sitting up there. Doc's, somebody's putting some stuff on my back. I'm smoking a cigar, drinking a Coors Light. Dave's sitting over there. We're laughing. We're going, this was the greatest thing. Oh, my God. Everybody's like, and they're like, Max, there's a lady downstairs crying. Says she's your wife. I'm like, well, bring her up. The look on her face was priceless. Because she looked like, what is this? These guys just beat you to death, and you're up here smoking a cigar and drinking a beer with them and joking around? She's crying, thinking I'm dead, thinking I just got beat with an inch of my life, and I just look at her and go, hey, hon, what's going on? Like, what are you crying for? I thought you... And the boys are sitting there going, and of course, the boys get up and they move away, because now they know they didn't sign up for this. They signed up for wrestling. So then on the ride home, I had to explain to her that, it's all cool. But doesn't it hurt? No. No, it's the show. You do what you have to for the show. That was one of those stories where it was like the show, it stole the show, and I would do it again in a heartbeat, and it was one of those things that, the business allotted us to do, not only live the dream, but to be able to have stories like this, because to you and me, that's an awesome story.
Right.
To my wife, that's like, you guys are nuts. You guys are
wrong.
nuts. Yeah. And I've been with my wife now since 1999. She's the love of my life, but she still doesn't get wrestling. She still don't get why you do it. She likes it. She thinks it's graceful. She thinks we're awesome athletes. She understands the whole dynamic of wrestling and the dedication and the athleticism. She understands it. She just doesn't understand the brutality and the wear and tear.
The mindset.
And the mindset why you would want to do that when you could, have a job that pays more, if not, and not beat yourself up.
Look. Wait a minute.
What's this?
What is he handing him?
What's this?
Wait, looks like a powder substance of some sort. Wait a minute. Pee-wee didn't see it. Phoenix has no idea. Oh, he nailed him with a handful of powder. Some sort of powder out of nowhere. That's it.
Oh, no.
Pee-wee, let's get some control. Let's get some timber. Let's get some control. This man is nuts.
It's just getting more blood all the time. I can't believe this.
It. Powder everywhere. He was disqualified. I know that. Bell is ringing. Casey kicking Phoenix like a... Jeez.
Tim, after Max got done with the story about the lashing and the whelps, my body is hurting. How about yours?
Yeah,
You've been at ringside for a lot of that action.
I've got to see that real up close and personal.
It's kind of scary, but it's also fun to relive.
It is, and it's been such a pleasure having Max Thrasher here this week. One of the real pioneers of the independent networks.
It is. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. We're going to see you again real soon. We're going to finish off with our special guest, Max Thrasher, and we're going to take you for that proverbial stroll down Concussion Lane.